on the sports bet from Topgolf Swing Suite starting at 2 p.m., discussing everything you need to know about this year's draft. During happy hour, gather your squad and come sit at the bar and enjoy a night full of football, drinks, and giveaways. The sports bet live at Topgolf Swing Suite in Ocean Casino Resort, Thursday, April 25th. Must be 21 or older to wager or consume alcohol. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him! It's a sack!
Sixers.
Oh, baby!
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hinnick.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort studio, here's Josh Hinnick.
Wednesday edition of Game Night, the day before the NFL draft. Let's go. Talking about the draft and the Eagles today on 97.3 ESPN. I'll also get to complain about the Phillies lineup a little bit later this hour as well. As always, you guys can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. So we got some baseball, we got some football to get to this hour. You know, the Sixers with the extra day off kind of gives us all a mental break from the Sixers until tomorrow night. Although tomorrow's going to be an interesting night for a lot of us because you don't want to miss, right? The Sixers game tomorrow night. But you don't want to miss what the Eagles do as well. So tomorrow will be an interesting night for a lot of people. Dig deeper into the NFL draft. We will talk with Michael Lombardi, former NFL general manager, host of the GM Shuffle podcast presented by DraftKings. He will join us in about 25 minutes from now. As you know, I really wanted to get his perspective because, you know, there are a couple of items that he has discussed, not just on his podcast, but on the different shows he goes on about the Eagles. And I kind of wanted to give an opportunity to bring that perspective here. Also, Lombardi's a local guy from Ocean City, so he understands this area and the dynamics of being a Philly sports fan very well. He himself is very exasperated with the Sixers as well, as I know, but I'll avoid the Sixers conversation with him here on 97.3 ESPN as best as possible. But I want to know what you guys think the day before the draft. There's a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of speculation what the Eagles could or couldn't do. And I want you guys to let me know throughout the show, who do you want to see the Eagles take and why? 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. However you want to get a hold of the show, jump into the conversation because I think that there is a very interesting case that the Eagles will not just make a move on day one of the draft, but they'll make a move because someone's going to drop. I think it's very likely that you have a situation where these quarterbacks and these wide receivers are going to push a ton of talented guys down the list. Because no matter whose mock draft you want to go with, right? The reality is that we all know what's going to happen, okay? And what's going to happen is, in some way, form, or fashion, okay, we know that quarterback is going to be at least 4 of the top 6 picks. We know Caleb Williams is going number 1. And we know a quarterback is going at 2, whether it's Jaden Daniels or it's Drake May, right? And we could argue until we're blue in the face about who it is or why it is that person. But the reality is that those quarterbacks, I just named 3 of them right there, they are going on this list. Like I said, Washington, New England, they're taking quarterbacks. Do the Giants get a quarterback? Probably not. But does a team like the Vikings trade up to 4, 5, or 6? We're going to find out about that. So the likelihood is you're going to have 4 quarterbacks at minimum in the top 10. And the teams that don't take quarterbacks, they're probably taking receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, they're all getting drafted. Brock Bowers, he could be a top 10 pick as well. Probably more like top 15, but he could be a top 10 pick. Joe Alt, probably a top 10 pick, the big offensive lineman from Notre Dame. And then you got some other interesting names out there. Byron Murphy, the powerful defensive tackle from Texas. Newton from Illinois. Liatu Latu could be drafted. So all these guys are going to push down what the Eagles need. But as Howie Roseman said to John Clark this week, they are not going into the draft looking for need. And I think this is where we have to keep in mind what the Eagles will do on draft night.
We got to make sure that we're taking the best players that are available, that we're not reaching for a particular position because maybe there's more of an immediate need. We still have a long time before we play the first game. The talent acquisition season doesn't end with the last day of the draft. We'll continue to look for ways to improve our team. So if there's a weakness at a particular position right now, we still have an opportunity to improve it. We just don't want to get in a situation where we're reaching from the value that we have on a player and then look back 2 or 3 years and say, man, we could have had this player.
And we know what Howie's talking about, okay? The reports were all out there for the last few years that the Eagles coaching staff wanted Jalen Reagor, but the front office wanted Justin Jefferson. Go back years before that. Chip Kelly wanted Marcus Smith. Nobody else wanted Marcus Smith, but the rest of the Eagles coaches basically stepped in to Chip Kelly and said, I'm in control and it's my draft. I'm going to do what I want. The Eagles passed on Russell Wilson a decade plus ago. Now, they end up with Nick Foles, and you know the rest is history. But Howie Roseman has seen way too many scenarios where they made a mistake. The Eagles could have gone with totally different players in multiple drafts, and they didn't always do the right thing. So for a team like Philadelphia, if the goal is to get the best player available, if that is the idea, if that is the goal, if that is how you are looking at this, then we got to take out what we might think the Eagles' needs are. Because remember, when the Eagles drafted Jalen Carter last year, it's not like anybody was saying, man, the Eagles desperately need a defensive tackle. No, it was Jalen Carter is potentially the best player in this draft, and he's falling down the draft board. We got to go get him. When the Eagles drafted Jordan Davis, it was the same thing. The Eagles had defensive tackles. There was nobody sitting there saying, man, we have to get D tackle. D tackle is a weakness on this team. Even when Philadelphia traded up to get Andre Dillard years ago, the Eagles weren't saying, man, we desperately need a left tackle. No, you already had a left tackle. The problem is that for Philadelphia, some of their best picks had not been positions of need. Now, they were fortunate to walk away with a guy like Devonta Smith, and it happened to be the position of need as well. But historically, they have made a lot of trades up. And the expectation is that they will trade up again. And Howie Roseman does not deny them trading up in this draft.
Obviously, we got great experience with moving up. That's an option for us. In this draft, we also feel like at 22, we're going to get a really good player. We like kind of where we are, but we'll look at all the opportunities.
They're looking at all the options because Howie Roseman doesn't want to give away anything. He wants to go in the draft night to see how the board plays out. He wants to go into tomorrow night's draft and say, let's see how this plays out. Let's see what makes sense. Let's find out what we can do in this draft. And I think that's a big part of this conversation. I think a big part of this conversation we're having is Philadelphia. They know what they need, but they also know that they have to get the best player available. And whether that is on their board, Quinyon Mitchell of Toledo, or whether that is Latu from UCLA, they are going to get the best player available. And that's why I don't think it will be like some of the mock drafts have them landing the guy from Oklahoma. And we talked about it yesterday, Tyler Guyton with Andy McNamara. Is Guyton really going to be the best player available when they get him? He might not be. And if you're going to trade up to get a guy who's dropping down the board, I don't think you're trading up for a guy like Guyton, who is projected to be a tackle in the NFL, who might be an average guard in the NFL, unless a guy like the Eagles offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, is like enamored with him. So, but we all have guys that we like in this draft, right? We all have players that, no matter who you are, there are guys in this draft that we all really like. So you guys let me know who you like. How do you feel about the cornerbacks? Are you looking at corner and saying that's a guy that they need to get? Is it Mitchell from Toledo, Arnold from Alabama, McKinstry from Alabama? I know that we talked about me and Dave Klemick this past week on the Locker Room with Billy Schwein here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh and I hanging out with you on a Wednesday. We talked about Cooper DeJean and how I think he's going to be a better safety than a corner in the NFL because he played in a system that asked him to play a lot of positions. So if you take a guy like Cooper DeJean, is he someone that you look at and say, I know he's listed as a corner, but we're going to draft him as a safety? Do you take a safety in the first round of this draft? Is Cooper DeJean really a better prospect than the other guys? Again, if we're assuming the Eagles are going to go best player available, how does that fit in with what happens tomorrow on draft night? We'll check the text board coming up next, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. I'll give you some of my theories and ideas of the players who might be available for them to trade up for, come aside and take your text. Don't forget Michael Lombardi, former NFL GM, will join us coming up at 6:30 tonight on 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings with Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Small.
That genuinely is a series that I feel like could go either way because there are so many components within the series that there's a big fluctuation of how it's going to go night to night. So that series, I think, is still alive even now as we sit here for Philly.
Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Kick off the Pro Football Draft with me, Mike Gill, at Top Golf Swing Suite in Ocean Casino Resort, Thursday, April 25th. I will be live on the Sports Bet from Top Golf Swing Suite starting at 2 p.m., discussing everything you need to know about this year's draft. During happy hour, gather your squad and come sit at the bar and enjoy a night full of football, drinks, and giveaways. The Sports Bet live at Top Golf Swing Suite in Ocean Casino Resort, Thursday, April 25th. Must be 21 or older, wager or consume alcohol. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. Get 6 times longer lasting freshness plus odor protection with Downy Unstoppables in wash scent beads.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over, and if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
Get in zone, AutoZone. Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. A bottle of Chevron Techron Complete Fuel System Cleaner can help your engine get more MPGs. Right now, when you buy one bottle, you can get one bottle free. A great deal to help you go a great deal farther. Find Chevron Techron and everything you need for better fuel efficiency at any one of our 6,300 stores.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Hey, I got a question for you. You hate bending over to put on your shoes? Wish you could just put them on standing or sitting without ever having to touch them? If so, then I have the shoe for you. Introducing new hands-free Skechers Slip-ins. With new Skechers Slip-ins, you just step in and off you go. You don't even need to lace up. So how do Skechers Slip-ins work? Well, there's a special smooth comfort pillow in the heel that helps your foot slide right into place. So just step in them and go. Find new hands-free Skechers Slip-ins for the whole family at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
If you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, AJ the Trade Man can get you released. Matt Blatt Nissan.com. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. And the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
For us, we try to use free agency. We try to use some of our off-season signings that weren't necessarily free agency, future signings, to build depth, to put us in a position where we can take the best player. And then, I feel very confident about our ability to continue to add talent to the team in the off-season, to get to training camp, to see what's out there, to do that at the trade deadline. So I don't think that our roster is going to be finalized one way or the other at the end of this draft.
Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, on how they build the roster, how they take care of the needs. He says it's everything. It's the offseason. It's free agency. It's trades. It's the trade deadline. It's what we have in training camp. Mike Gill and I talked about earlier on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on Wednesday. And we talked about how you go back to the 2017 season and how the Eagles had multiple guys in training camp that they were trying to figure out. Is it Chance Warmack, right? Is it Stefan Wisniewski? Is it Isaac Seumalo, right? And it ended up for Philadelphia that, they had to go into the 2017 season and they had to play certain guys more than expected. When Jason Peters went down, Halapuli Vaitai had to play left tackle. Stefan Wisniewski was a starter in the Super Bowl. Isaac Seumalo had to get playing time that season in the offensive line. Even though he was drafted to be a center, he had to play some of the guard positions. So you can go into camp and see what you have and how you could say, you know what? I don't like what I have. I'm going to trade for CJ Garner-Johnson, Ronald Darby. So it's a great perspective to have. Jeff in Ocean City made me think of that quote when he said, I'm far from a draft expert, and I've criticized Howie many times, but I trust in Mr. Roseman to give us the right man, from Jeff in Ocean City. Well, Jeff, let's talk about some of the guys who are available out there. Get them with your text in just a moment. Steven Ventnor and more at 609-403-0973. And again, depends on what mock draft, what simulator you want to use. There's 20 different ways. And honestly, no one's really that right. Okay. To say one person knows more than somebody else, it's a complete farce, because a lot of times these drafts go completely different directions than each other. But if you are anticipating, and again, I'm anticipating 4 quarterbacks go high in the draft, and I'm anticipating 4 wide receivers go high in the draft. And the quarterbacks talking about Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, right? And the 4 wide receivers are Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, and Brian Thomas. And let's assume that Joe Alt gets drafted. Let's assume that Byron Murphy gets drafted. Let's assume that at least one of the other offensive linemen, whether it's Fontanu from Washington, Fuaga from Oregon State, although I love Fuaga. If the Eagles got Fuaga, I would be thrilled, honestly. But for me, let's assume all those guys are going to push people down the list. So let's assume that if you're Philadelphia, you're looking at guys like Quinyon Mitchell, who we know there's a connection between the Eagles and Toledo, because Nick Sirianni has connections to the Toledo coaching staff. Mitchell is a guy who's been talked about by a lot of people in this draft process. Luatu Latu is a fantastic pass rusher. And we know Philadelphia, they signed Bryce Huff, but no Hassan Reddick. They're a little thin at the pass rusher position. You're not asking Brandon Graham to be a full-time pass rusher anymore. He is a part-time, small, a smaller piece of the larger puzzle for Philadelphia on the edge right now. You have the Alabama corners, Terry and Arnold, and Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? You also have the Alabama offensive lineman, J.C. Latham. And I call him an O-lineman because, it seems like he might be able to play guard and tackle because of his physical abilities, right? You also have an edge rusher like Jared Verse. Would Philadelphia consider someone like him? You have the corner Nate Wiggins out there. So there's a lot of guys out there that Philadelphia could be considering. They could maybe even trade up if they see some of these guys dropping down the list. A guy like Luatu Latu, if you see him drop past the Saints and the Colts at 14-15, does Philadelphia call a team like the Seahawks and try to get ahead of Jacksonville, who theoretically would be interested in some of the same players that you are, not just because Doug Peterson is there, but because of how their roster is constructed? They're going to look at the corners. They're going to look at the edge rushers. And the reason why I keep mentioning defensive players, only one offensive player, is because Dalen Jeremiah said this on the Takeoff podcast with John Clark.
The thing that's helped me the most in trying to navigate around, at least have an educated guess of what these teams are going to do, the best place to call is the school to find out, talk to the position coaches at the school and then find out, okay, what's teams have been doing the most homework on your guys. And I'll just put it this way. The Philadelphia Eagles have done a lot of work on corners.
Philadelphia has done a lot of work on the corners, Daniel Jeremiah said. So you got Mitchell, you got Arnold, you got McKinstry, even Cooper DeJean, who's sitting out there. Will they go a certain direction? Obviously, corner makes sense. We know a few years ago they wanted Patrick Surtain and Joe Horn. They couldn't move up to get them. We know that Philadelphia has had an interest in the position before. This might be the year they finally get those guys. Dan in EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973. He says, no more Georgia players, please, Howie. Everybody likes Kool-Aid McKinstry. Well, a couple things, Dan EHT. One, I don't know what you have against Georgia players because Jalen Carter was very good last year. Yeah, he hit a rookie wall, but he is still a stud. Jordan Davis just needs to get in better shape. He just needs better conditioning. He needs to take a little more of a mature responsibility. Kobe Dean got injured last year. I'm not going to hate the guy for that. And I think Keely Ringo still has a future as a solid player in this league. I just don't think he's going to be a bona fide star, as maybe some people hoped he would be. So, excuse me, I don't think Georgia players are the problem. I think the problem is that I think that Danny HT, not to put words in your mouth, but I think a lot of people generally look at first round picks and they want these guys to be day one stars, right? And I think people forget that, not all of these players work out. I thought it was great what, ESPN's Hembo put out this stat earlier this morning. It was retweeted by Adam Schefter, where he explained how many players are hits versus busts. And you look at the positions that hit the most. It's center, tackle, and guard. So the offensive line is going to get you the highest rate of return. The lowest rate of return are wide receiver, tight end, and safety. So if you take out the three biggest hits and the three lowest hits on the range of what first round picks work out, and you realize that in that middle range there is linebacker, quarterback, edge, D tackle, and defensive back. So we know Philadelphia doesn't need a quarterback, and they don't need a defensive tackle. So if Philadelphia goes best player available, and we know they're not taking a quarterback, and we know they're not taking a wide receiver or a tight end most likely, then it probably is going to be one of those corners. It's probably, in that case, not going to be a Georgia player. And of course, David from Violent immediately chimes in, I want more Georgia dogs. So Danny HD, David from Violent, they don't agree. We'll ask Michael Lombardi his thoughts on the NFL draft coming up next. I'm Josh Hennick here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and a 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
The 2024 NFL Draft.
So you ready for the draft? Let's get started.
From number 1 to Mr. Irrelevant.
The San Francisco 49ers select Brock Purdy, a quarterback from Iowa State.
The 2024 NFL Draft, live from the heart of downtown Detroit.
The Chicago Bears select.
It all starts with round 1, tomorrow at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
It's the 2024 NFL Draft on 97.3 ESPN.
Champion Exteriors, Champion, the one you call first. Voted best of the best in Jersey Shores. For roofing and siding, windows and doors. 24-month financing, no payments, no interest. Your certified GAF elite contractors. Champion-exteriors.com. Champion Exteriors.
Call 800-276-0032.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. Changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Valvoline Advanced can help your engine get more miles. Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP Extended Life oil filter for only $35.99. Get started on your next job today with the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Remarkable change begins with daring to be different. Baby, I'm on a mission with Boost Mobile, putting the latest phones in the hands of more people. Introducing the Signature Coach Prime Razor, only from Boost Mobile. Rush to your nearest Boost Mobile retailer and get your Signature Coach Prime Razor on us. Get after it.
When you switch in with ID verification, select plans only. Offer valid 4/19/24 through 5/23/24. While supplies last. Taxes extra. New customers only. Must remain active and in good standing on the $60 a month plan for 6 months to receive all credits. Offer subject to change.
Lowe's knows pros need the right tools for every job. That's why we sell the largest in-store selection of Klein tools anywhere. Find new items launching exclusively at Lowe's, like the self-leveling laser level for just $159.98. Plus, shop the Connect socket set for just $49.98. Get Klein Tools in-store and online today. Because Lowe's knows tools. Lowe's knows pros.
Progressive asks, what do a middle school slumber party,
Let's stay up all night. Yeah!
a sleep-deprived girl, an early morning paper route, and a poorly thrown rolled-up newspaper have in common?
Hey, my window!
They can become a fast-breaking news story.
Sorry, Mr. Thompson.
Bundle your home and auto with Progressive for great savings and round-the-clock protection.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card good for use at PJ Bucket Seafood in Ventnor and Ocean City for just $25.
Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at seizethedeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to seizethedeal.com.
SeizeTheDeal.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennick on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Before we get back to the text board at 609-403-0973 and your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, let's go to the phone line. Joining us right now, former NFL general manager. Of course, he is the co-host of the DraftKings podcast, the GM Shuffle, Veasan NFL analyst, and of course, author of the brand new book, Football Done Right, setting the record straight on the coaches, players, and history of the NFL. And of course, Ocean City's own Michael Lombardi joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Michael, welcome in. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Appreciate you having me. It's good to be here.
I appreciate you jumping on. And I wanted to start with this because, I wanted you to kind of help people understand, when someone like Howie Roseman says, we want best player available versus reaching for need, what does that mean for someone like you?
Well, I mean, Howie really doesn't have very many needs. I mean, he spent a lot of money in free agency, and I think he addressed all his needs that he had. So he obviously needs a corner, but for the most part, I think what it means is your team's ready to go play. I got it, Michelle. No, I got it. They're ready to play, and all you want to do is take the best player. Now, Howie obviously is looking for a corner, and that corner could come in Mitchell, in the Mitchell kid from Toledo. So, it's kind of you want to be able to, especially in the first round, you want to be able to draft the best player because you don't want to make a mistake and you want to make sure the guy's going to come in and be the right guy. But, all teams configure the board around their needs because they want to make sure that they come out of the draft with somebody who can help the team immediately.
When you say help the team immediately, I remember you mentioned on the GM Shuffle podcast about how, teams will have guys ranked differently because of how they fit into their system. So how important is it for a team like Philadelphia with a new defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio to get the guy that fits what Vic Fangio wants?
Well, I mean, Vic will make it really clear what he wants. Vic will make it very clear, and it's not that hard to figure out what Vic wants to do. He runs a multiple front. He needs corners that'll cover. I mean, that's part of the strategy that involved the draft is to understand the concepts and the schemes within a defensive and offensive structure. Football's not baseball. You can't play third base for the Phillies and get traded to the Mets and play the same day. Football is a very, very intricate game. It requires understanding the schemes. For example, when you watch Alabama, they want to play a lot of man-to-man coverage, but this year they didn't because they didn't feel like they had the corners to play man-to-man. And so that leads you to believe that are there corners that are coming out in the draft good enough to play man-to-man when Alabama wouldn't do it? I think that's something to consider.
We know that in the draft, these quarterbacks are going to be all drafted pretty high. It's going to push down a lot of guys. And, I know that there are teams also up there like the Atlanta Falcons, for example, that are probably going to make a poor pick, as we know. So when you look at the guys who are going to fall down the draft board, are you looking at a draft that's going to have a surplus of great players for the teams that are after the 10th pick?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is a draft that has very few defensive players. There are only probably 12 guys that have legitimate first-round grades on them in the first in there. But look, Justin Jefferson was the 5th receiver picked in his draft class. teams are going to make mistakes on guys for whatever reason, and you just have to trust your instincts and your evaluation process that it's correct. And if it's right, you'll be fine.
We're talking with Michael Lombardi, 3-time Super Bowl winning executive, author of the book Football Done Right, setting the record straight on the coaches, players, and history of the NFL, joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You used to work with Bill Belichick, and I heard Belichick talk about on the Pat McAfee show how they never expected guys like Vince Wilfork to fall down the draft board the way they did. Take the audience inside a draft room and what it is like when you see a guy dropping who is high on your board. Like, what is that discussion like?
Yeah, well, when you go into the draft and you're picking in the 30s, you're really not optimistic you're going to get a guy. And as he starts to slide, you begin to wonder why. Are you missing something that goes on? And you go back to trust your instincts. You make sure that, you feel like you have the right information, and then you basically say to yourself, look, we have a different need. In Vince Wilfork's case, he was more of a lateral player who played laterally, wasn't really a big pass rusher. Not a lot of teams were playing a 34 defense. So, you just sit there and you just hope it makes it. And then you have this urge to move up to get him because you don't want to lose him by a player or lose him by a pick. And I think that's one of the things the Patriots have always done. Belichick's been very patient in the draft. And there's been times he's traded up, like when he traded for Chandler Jones and Highsmith. But for the most part, he's very patient.
You talk about being patient. Is part of that patience not just to see how the draft plays out, but to also make sure that you don't make a move that is going to be something that you regret later?
Yeah, well, that's right. Look, the thing about the draft is you're not worried about getting an A. What the most important thing about the draft is you want to make sure that Bill Walsh used to say all the time to us, it doesn't matter where you pick them, it matters how they play. So, for example, in 2021, or 22, the 49ers did not have a first or second round pick. They picked 61st overall. And after the draft, they had 7 picks or 8 picks, and they got an A- for the draft. Now, none of those draft picks have played well, except for Brock Purdy, who was the last pick in that draft. So it really only takes one to make your grade. But the grades after the draft are meaningless. I mean, most teams, the Jets always get an A because it depends on, the grade. The person grading the draft is usually some reporter, and he's not going to go against somebody who's helping him with information.
Right. Mike, I want to ask you, going back to the Eagles, you look around the NFL and you're someone who worked in the league for a long time. And I want to get your perspective on this. You see a lot of people who used to be in the Eagles organization, the Ian Cunninghams, the Andrew Berries, the Joe Douglases, the Andy Weidells, the Catherine Rachies. You see them all. They were in Philadelphia. Now they're somewhere else. What is it about the Philadelphia organization that makes it so appealing for other organizations to come and take their people?
Well, I mean, Douglas spent a long time in Baltimore. I think that, and then he went to Philly, and I think a lot of those guys have moved around. I think it's basically, you learn a good system, and I think Philadelphia is really good at really what I think Philly does a wonderful job of is being able to, from the owner on down, is have a philosophical understanding of what they're looking for. I mean, and it starts with Jeff Lurie. And, the years that I worked for the 1 year that I ran the draft for the Eagles, I mean, Jeff Lurie was all about offensive and defensive linemen. We drafted Trey Thomas in the first round. I traded for Hugh Douglas in the second round. We drafted Brandon Whiting in the fourth round. That's been the philosophy going back before Howie ever got there. And that's really important because you have the ability to know what everybody wants to do. And I think that philosophy lends itself towards winning.
You mentioned about the offensive and defensive lines. Talk with Michael Lombardi, VSiN NFL analyst, co-host of the GM Shuffle podcast on the DraftKings podcasting network. We know that the offensive linemen typically are a safe bet. People don't think it's very sexy, right? But it's such an important position. When you look at the offensive linemen in this year's draft, how many of them stand out for you?
There's a lot of good ones. There really is. And they don't have to necessarily be picked in the first round. There's probably going to be 8 in the first round between guard, tackle, center, and there'll be even more. Jordan Morgan from the University of Arizona is a really good player. Do I think he goes in the first round? He could, but he might not. I mean, look, the success rate of drafting really in the first round offensive lineman is the highest position you can draft. It has the most hit ratio in terms of being able to have success with the pick. The one with the least amount is wide receiver. And what do most fans want your team to do? They want you to pick a wide receiver. And Bill Walsh said to me, in 1984, the last position you fix on your football team is the wide receiver, because if you're not good everywhere else, it's hard to make the receiver good. And he's right. And that year in 84, we went up and drafted Jerry Rice because the rest of our team was really good.
When you look at the drafts tomorrow night, is there a player that you're going to be watching the most as the picks play out?
Yeah, I think Byron Murphy from the University of Texas. He's a three technique. Three techniques are hard to find. It's like Jalen Carter last year. For him to go to 9 or 10 to the Eagles is ridiculous. You know, the Falcons had a chance to pick him. They picked their running back. You can't pick a running back over a three technique. Three techniques are the most important position on your defense. And if you don't have one, it's hard to generate inside pass rush. So, and Murphy is the best three technique by far. And all this nonsense about, well, Dallas Turner is going to be the first defensive player off the board is just really ridiculous, because Murphy will be.
How much do you think, you mentioned about Dallas Turner going off the board first. I was going to ask you this, but I am just curious. How much do you think this information out there is legitimate that fans are consuming, and how much is not? Because you said earlier that sometimes these people are getting information and they're kind of like trying to make their sources happy, right? So how much of the information out there is legit and how much of it is just horse manure?
99% of it is because you got people grading players that have never done it before for a living. Everybody has an opinion on tomorrow night. If somebody doesn't pick a guy that Mel Kiper thinks is the right pick, Mel yells at him and says it's a bad pick, when that's Mel's opinion, and he's entitled to it, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's right. I mean, Mel's never run a draft before. Mel's never had to win a game before, you know, and so you have a lot of people that do this that started. This started in the early 60s when Jerry Jones started a thing called the drugstore list. And, you know, these people that grade for a living, they're not necessarily always right, you know? I mean, so you just have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't make my opinion better than theirs, but my opinion when you're in the draft and you're working in the NFL, my opinion comes down to winning. And if I don't get it right, I lose my job. If Mel doesn't get it right, he's back on TV again.
So true, so true. Before I let you go, I want to know from you, with that in mind, is there a player that you, as someone who worked in the NFL, has seen hyped up a lot by the experts like the Mel Kipers and others, but you know that they're hyping him too much and the guy from a football sense shouldn't be that highly lauded?
Well, Brady Quinn would be a perfect example. Mel thought he was the best player in the draft, you know, and so, but there's a lot of guys I thought were really good that didn't play as well. So it's not Mel's, but a lot, you have to understand when guys get hyped, there's a reason for the hype.
He's Michael Lombardi, author of the book Football Done Right. I got to tell you, Michael, this book is awesome. I really love this book, setting the record straight on the coaches, players, and history of the NFL. It's a great summer read for everybody going down to the beach here at the Jersey Shore. And, of course, you can catch him on the GM Shuffle podcast presented by DraftKings and also his NFL analysis on the VSiN Network. Appreciate you jumping on today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Josh Hennick here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Great stuff there from Michael Lombardi. And I thought what he said was very interesting near the end, because he said, hey, all these people are saying, take Dallas Turner. But he said, Byron Murphy is a rare player. He said, you know, he compared him to Jalen Carter. He says, these guys don't come around very often. And he said, it's ridiculous that people are saying you have to draft Dallas Turner over Byron Murphy. And he even said, look, you know, he says almost 99% of what we hear is horse manure. Now, you know, maybe that number is a little exaggerated because he is someone who worked in the league and he looks at people like a Mel Kiper and he's like, dude, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Because he mentioned Brady Quinn, but he gave you a tangible example there. And like I said, you can go to anybody's board, anybody's list, because everybody has an opinion, right? And you can see, for example, that, you know, you have a player, and I'm just throwing out a name right now because he mentioned Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner is considered a top 10, the top 15 NFL prospect, right? But just because that guy is a top 10, the top 15 prospect doesn't mean that he is automatically going to be as good as people are projecting him to be. I think that's an important distinction to make. Sometimes these guys do get overrated. They do get overranked or they're overdrafted, for example. You know, I mentioned how the Eagles, they should have never drafted Marcus Smith, right? That was the big Chip Kelly pick that Howie Roseman took Howie Roseman is taking the blame for that, but all the informational reporting out there says that Marcus Smith was a Chip Kelly pick. All right. Look at the guys who went after Marcus Smith in the second round of that draft. DeMarcus Lawrence, Joe Bitonio, Kyle Van Noy, Devontae Adams. These are guys who are Pro Bowlers. Allen Robinson also has been a Pro Bowler. In the third round of that draft, Morgan Moses, a quality starting NFL offensive lineman, along with Trey Turner. It just goes to show you that just because a guy is drafted in the first round doesn't mean he's going to work. And we go back to that chart I told you guys about, and you even heard Michael Lombardi say it. The trenches, the offensive line, the defensive line, they are more likely to be hits than misses. So if you're Philadelphia and you're drafting for best player available and you don't want to mess this draft pick up, there's no guarantee that they're taking a corner. There is a possibility that Philadelphia does 2 trade ups in this draft. They could trade up once if they see a guy falling. For example, I mentioned Talise Fuaga is a guy who can play interior and outside offensive line. The dude is a monster. The dude is a stud. He is a mauler. He is right in the Jeff Stoutland coaching system type of guy. If that guy is dropping, if a Troy Fontenot is dropping, right? If a JC Latham drops, I wouldn't be surprised if Philadelphia just goes up and gets that guy. And then they make a second trade by moving other picks in the second round to move up in the second round because they may say, we didn't get the corners that we wanted in the first round, but Max Melton could fall to us, right? Or maybe a guy like Enos Rakestraw from Missouri, maybe that guy falls to us, right? Maybe a TJ Tampa from Iowa State. Maybe he's dropping down the board. Philadelphia could walk out of this draft in the first 2 days with just an offensive lineman and a corner. And if they're the players I think they could end up being, I don't think that would be a bad draft at all. All right, still to come. They promise more your text 609-403-0973. All right, so I see text from Steven Ventnor, Dan and EHT. I also see David and Violent has another text as a follow-up. And I have an anonymous texter as well. So I want to get all your messages coming up next. Josh Hennick here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Hi, this is Billy Schwein from the Locker Room.
I'm Dave Klemick, owner of Klemick Performance Method.
Join us this Saturday as we broadcast live from the Bayfest in Summers Point from 10 a.m. to 12 noon.
Stop by and get your official vertical leap tested and compared to the national averages, just like the NFL Combine.
John Coyle from All Campus will be joining us with a great selection of pro and college hats for purchase.
Come find us on Bay Avenue, Ketty Corner of the Summers Point Beach.
It's the Locker Room with Billy Schwein, live from the Bayfest, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
Lowe's knows pros need the right tools for every job. That's why we sell the largest in-store selection of Klein tools anywhere. Find new items launching exclusively at Lowe's, like the self-leveling laser level for just $159.98. Plus, shop the Connect socket set for just $49.98. Get Klein tools in-store and online today, because Lowe's knows tools. Lowe's knows pros.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. All kinds of beers and thousands of wines.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Hey Verizon customers, want the best in-home Wi-Fi? X marks the spot. It's never been a better time to switch. Get Xfinity Gig Speed Internet for the lowest price ever, with unlimited data included. So you can stream, shop, chat, game, and work on all your devices, all at the same time. Now through May 14th, new customers can get Xfinity Gig Internet for only $30 a month for 12 months with no annual contract when you add one line of Xfinity Mobile Unlimited. for savings more than $800 over Verizon in your first year. X marks the spot. Switch to fast, reliable Xfinity Internet and bring on the good stuff. Go to Xfinity.com today. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. Compares promotional pricing for Xfinity Gig Internet and one Xfinity Mobile Unlimited line versus Verizon Fios Gig Internet and one Welcome Plan line. After promo, regular rates apply. Gig Wi-Fi requires Xfinity Gateway. Actual speeds vary. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. Reduced speeds up to 30 gigabits of usage per line. Data thresholds may vary.
So you just used bug spray in your home. Now what? Well, between the waiting and waiting for things to dry up and keeping your family away from the mess, it hits you. You could have used Zevo. Unlike other bug sprays that stick around, Zevo goes from kill to clean in seconds. Plus, it's safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
With Spring Black Friday savings at the Home Depot, you can get up to $2,300 off select kitchen packages from top brands like GE Profile. That means you can save on a new GE Profile Smart Quad Door Refrigerator that's full of convenient features like a dual dispense autofill pitcher and an ice dispenser with up to 12.5 pounds capacity. Bring convenience to your kitchen with smart, innovative appliances from GE Profile. Right now, save up to $2,300 on select kitchen packages with Spring Black Friday savings at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Don't let spring allergies make you miserable. Try the quick, drug-free solution trusted by over 4 million people. Navage. Only Navage uses suction to flush out your sinuses using refreshing saline, helping you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier. And here's even better news. Navage is now available at your local Sam's Club in a great new value pack. It's everything you need to start breathing better immediately at Sam's guaranteed best price. Navage. N-A-V-A-G-E. Breathe easy.
With GMF financing to qualify buyers excludes Corvette, excludes prior sales.
It's back! Bennett Chevrolet selling new Chevys at $500 below GM supplier employee pricing. You heard right. At Bennett Chevrolet, we're not only selling new Chevys at GM employee supplier pricing. No! Bennett selling new Chevys at $500 below GM supplier employee prices. Plus, you keep all the rebates. Yes, you keep all rebates and get a new vehicle at $500 below GM supplier employee pricing. And Bennett's got available 1.9% financing, saving you even more. Looking for used? For a limited time, you'll get a minimum $10,000 for any old rusted, busted junker you can get here. That's at least 10 grand towards any pre-owned in stock. Imagine how much you'll get for a good trade. And you'll absolutely love our non-commissioned sales team because they're paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. It's Bennett Chevy's best offer ever. New Chevys at $500 below the GM supplier employee price. Plus, you keep all the rebates. Together, let's drive at Bennett Chevrolet, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennick on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Let's get to your text now at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Anonymous texter said, I think the Eagles should draft for need by moving up to get a corner. But knowing the organization, I wouldn't be surprised to see an offensive lineman. With Kelsey retiring, Lane with a few more years, but they think ahead. I wouldn't hate it either. I like having dominant trenches. That's from an anonymous texter. Yeah, and, I think that's where, again, I think there are some really good O-linemen. You heard Michael Lombardi say it as well. I don't know how many are dropping, though. Like, for example, does a guy like Talise Fuaga, does a guy like Troy Fontenot, does a guy like J.C. Latham, do those guys drop it all? They get pushed down the board. We don't know for sure. So we got to keep an eye on that. Of your Philadelphia, do you even consider waiting into the second round to get an offensive line? Because the success rate in the first round. Something definitely to think about. Let's see here. Dan from EHT says, Eagles need trench help anyway. D and O lines are a priority as usual. The great Howie will get it done somehow, some way. What a day tomorrow on Philly sports. Phillies in the afternoon, and then draft in the Eagles. The draft with the Eagles and Sixers in prime time. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be absolutely wild. Phillies game in the afternoon. Mike Gill will keep you updated about that as a sports bash. They are broadcasting live tomorrow from Top Golf at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. And then the draft at night. That's going to be absolutely bonkers as well. Steve from Ventnor chimes in and says, The NFL draft is my favorite time of year. I think Mitchell is the pick. He's a shutdown outside corner with Ty Sirianni, and as a Philadelphia attitude, I would let Bradbury start week 1. And if either him or Slay get hurt, Mitchell will get his chance. Hopefully they wouldn't need him year 1, but they need an heir apparent for those two. You're 100% right. I think that it's very interesting that you have two guys who are in their 30s now, and you got to have a legitimate guy to fill in that role. Philadelphia has drafted guys. Jeff Mosher brought this up earlier today on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. Jeff Mosher from Football at 4 and Inside the Birds podcast. He said, when Philadelphia drafted guys years ago, like the Sidney Browns, like the Zach McPhersons, like the Rasul Douglas, the idea was they were hoping to say those guys can develop into something. And Stephen Menner's right. I don't think Mitchell is ready day 1 to start, but he definitely could be cultivated and developed to be something more. And I think that is a big part of all of this. By the way, shout out to David from Violin. He's going to be over at Top Golf with Mike Gill and Sports Bash tomorrow. Yeah, you guys have fun, man. That's going to be a wild day. I think that when you think about tomorrow night, I think that, you heard Lombardi, say that, a lot of the speculation out there, it's speculation. We don't really know what's going to happen. So I'm going to put out there, and I'll give more predictions tomorrow night. I think that there is definitely going to be a couple players who are overdrafted and someone is going to drop. I think that is where Howie is going to trade up. I don't know who exactly that is. Is it Liatu Lutu because he has injury issues on his resume? Is it a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry because he was overshadowed by Terry and Arnold last season? Is it a guy like J.C. Latham because everyone wants to get pass rushers and wide receivers instead of offensive linemen? Is it a Nate Wiggins? Is it somebody that Philadelphia maybe has a higher grade on than the experts do? We're going to find out tomorrow. It's going to be a fascinating ride. Sixers tomorrow night, NFL draft tomorrow night. It's going to be a wild night. I can't wait for it. I feel like I'm trying to make up for lost time with all this draft talk. They had so much Sixers talk this week. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings with Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Small.
This is ridiculous. And the other thing, Smalls, the final 2 minutes don't count more than the 2 minutes prior to that or the 2 minutes prior to that or the 46 minutes prior. Why are we doing this? You think Sixers fan today is like, oh, you know what? Great. Finally, they proved us right. You still are down 0-2.
Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.